Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf and to kind of a different video, sort of a little bit different. Unless you have lived under a rock and never watched the news, you know that Ruth Bader Ginsburg died last week. And if you're following my channel, you know that I've been a lawyer for a long time before I became a writer, and I'm still working in the law in a sense because I teach at a university and I work for the Human Rights Institute, the Dutch Human Rights Institute in Utrecht, which is in the Netherlands. And I wanted to make a video about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and also, of course, because this is a booktube channel, I recommend some books about her, in case you're interested. And why wouldn't you be? Because the death of RBG, as she is known, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, it really floored me, I have to say. She meant a lot to me as an inspiration for me as a young lawyer. She is my mother's age. She was born 2 years after my mother, so in 1933, but it's the same generation. And her work as a professor, as an advocate, but also as a trial lawyer, especially for gender equality, and then, of course, as the second woman on the Supreme Court as a justice. She inspired me when I was a young lawyer back in the day, which is quite some time ago, and I didn't quite know, what to do. I started studying law because I didn't quite know what to do with my life. And if you study law, you can do a lot of things. You can become a lawyer, obviously, but I was contemplating, becoming a diplomat or maybe working for the government as a lawyer drafting laws. Eventually, I became an attorney. And the message or the example that Ruth Bader Ginsburg said was not unimportant to me. I'm not an American, US American, obviously, as you know. I was born in Germany, so I studied law in Germany and I became a lawyer in Germany. But I did a lot of international law, and therefore I was looking beyond the border of just German lawyers. And of course, gender equality is something close to my heart because I'm a woman. So there you go. But I think what Ruth Bader Ginsburg inspired me to do back when I studied law, and afterwards not quite sure what kind of attorney I want to become, and I worked for a big commercial law firm, and we did all these mergers and acquisitions and a lot of money. And it wasn't quite what I wanted to do. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she said that in multiple interviews also later in her life. She always said to her students that if you study law and you become a lawyer, then you develop, you have a skill like a plumber. But if you want to be a true professional, you look for something beyond yourself and you try to use your skill in order to make the life of other people who are less fortunate than you a little bit better. So this idea that you could use the law for a broader goal inspired me to do criminal law and human rights law in particular. So I defended people who I thought were, suppressed or oppressed by the state. It doesn't really matter what kind of cases I did, but I just wanted to say that she meant something to me personally in my life as a lawyer. But that was not the main reason that I wanted to make the video. The main reason was that if you followed the news after her death, I think like within an hour or so, it was not about her anymore, but it was about the vacancy and whether or not the president, the current president, should be allowed to nominate somebody this close to an election and fill the seat, even though it's not the right thing to do. But of course they will. And even though this is a very important discussion, and of course I have an opinion on that, and I don't think the seat should be filled before the election in November. But what it also meant is that there was not a lot of talk about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and what she meant to the law, to the development of the law as an attorney, but also, of course, as a justice. And I felt that this was not the right way to honor her legacy. I also want to point out that even though I admire Ruth Bader Ginsburg immensely, and yes, I'm wearing a Ruth Bader Ginsburg t-shirt, of course, I'm a fangirl in a way, but that doesn't mean that I think she is perfect. Not at all. There are a couple of things that she did as a justice, for instance, when she decided cases that involved indigenous peoples, the Oneida Nation ruling in particular in 2005, where the majority of the Supreme Court, an 8-1 majority, denied the nation the right to their tribal land because it's just been too long ago, basically. And I know that she regretted this decision immensely later in life, but she was not perfect. And I don't think that we should, if we admire somebody, we can see their flaws still. That's at least what I do. Her remarks, I think 4 years ago, 2016, after Colin Kaepernick kneeled during the national anthem, and she called that a dumb action. I was disappointed, and she regretted that as well afterwards. So when I say I admire her, that doesn't mean I think she is flawless, or that she never did anything wrong, or that some of her decisions, or that all of her decisions were great. But the influence that she had, I think, on the court, and especially in terms of gender equality, but also in her later years, her dissenting opinions when it came to the Voting Rights Act, that's a reason to admire her. And so I wanted to make a video about her because after her death, like I said, it's a lot of talk about the vacancy and how it should be filled and when it should be filled, and but we need to talk about her. We need to remember her. That's at least how I feel. So I picked 3 books that I can recommend to you if you're interested in learning more about her life. And the first one is called Notorious RBG, and it is an autobiography. It's kind of a biography giving us an overview of her life, also over her life as a lawyer. So there is law in the book, but it is explained in a way that it's accessible and interesting, at least that's what I think, to everybody if you're a lawyer or if you aren't. I will leave links to the books down below with the author's name and titles and Goodreads links as always. So this book I can certainly recommend if you want to read a good biography. There are also some quotes and at the end of the book, she became a pop icon, if you will, in her 80s, and part of the book at the end also deals with that. The second book I want to recommend is by Linda Hirschman, and it's called Sisters-in-Law. And I would say that is more for people who really want to have more of a deep dive into the development of the Supreme Court, because it's about the 2 women, Sandra Day O'Connor, and then Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Like I said, she was the second woman appointed to the court when Clinton nominated her in 1993. And the life of these two very different women, Sandra Day O'Connor, a conservative justice, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, more a liberal justice, but the way they shaped the court and what it meant for them to be the first and the second woman, respectively, on the Supreme Court, I think is very interesting. And the last book is by Ruth Bader Ginsburg herself, more or less. It's called In My Own Words, and it's a collection of speeches and decisions and statements that she made on various topics, and each chapter is introduced by some biographical facts to give you context. So it's a collection of essays, but with biographical framework around it. And I can certainly recommend all three of the books. And I think for lawyers and people really interested in the law, Sisters in Law is maybe the best book to choose. And for readers who are most interested in Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life, I would recommend Notorious RBG. And for people who want to read what she said and wrote, then I would recommend In My Own Words. There are also two movies that you can watch. The one is a feature film on the basis of Sex, who is a chronicle of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's early life when she, from the start in law school. She went to Harvard Law School first and switched to Columbia later. And when she entered Harvard Law School, she was one of 9 women out of some 340 students. You can imagine. So it starts there, the movie starts there, and then goes up to her first big gender equality case. It's Hollywood, but it's still, I think it's still a worthwhile movie. If you are more into the factual, then I would recommend the documentary, which is also called Notorious RBG, where you have interviews with people who know her well, friends, but also colleagues. And it's also a chronicle of her life. You see her develop from a young lawyer from Harvard Law School, and she couldn't get a job as an attorney afterwards in New York, where she lived when she finished Columbia. So she became a professor, and from there she developed her thing, if you want, the gender equality cases. I think the documentary is fabulous, especially because you can see her as well. But the movie on the basis of Sex is certainly entertaining and gives you at least a glimpse into her life. Anyway, this is my contribution to not only talk about the vacant seat, but talk about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and remember her for what she did as an attorney and as an associate justice on the Supreme Court. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I hope that you've enjoyed this, and maybe I can, help you read some books about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I would certainly make me very happy if you would read more about this very, very special woman. I'm looking forward to your comments, of course, as always, and I'll see you all in the next one.